Hey, Astro Kids, and welcome back. And in today's video, we'll be talking about Saturn in the sign of Libra. So before we start, I just want to give a few quick disclaimers. Firstly, you want to see if there are any planets conjunct with Saturn or aspecting Saturn. This will definitely have a different effect on how Saturn will behave in your chart. You also want to see which house is Saturn positioned in, and which houses does Saturn have rulership over. So you want to see where is Capricorn and where is Aquarius in your chart. Saturn will definitely bring themes from those houses as well. It's also important to understand the activation of Saturn. So there are specific times when Saturn will become more active in your chart. And the most important one will be the Dasha period of Saturn. So if you have not seen my video on Saturn Mahadasha Bhuktis, make sure to check that out. I will leave a link for that above and down below in the description. You also want to see transits to Saturn as well, as that can activate Saturn in your chart also. Along with this, you want to look for your Sati period. This is when the transiting Saturn will go over your natal moon. So at this time, Saturn will also have an influence over your life. Saturn also will have major maturity periods that will come in as well. And so the Saturn return around the age of 29 is a very important moment where the themes and lessons of Saturn will become more clear to you. At the age of 36, when Saturn reaches its full maturity, this is where some of the karmic restrictions will start to release. So from this point up into the 40s and 50s is where this really starts to get easier in the chart, and we understand how to apply the correct actions with Saturn in our chart. It's also important to see if there are any additional karmas that are tagged along with Saturn in the chart as well. So a Saturn retrograde will definitely indicate that there is karma that is connected with Saturn. And this may be you are dealing out to other people, or karma that someone else is repaying to you from a past life situation, depending upon how it is placed in the chart. Also, a combustion of Saturn will definitely show that there are karmas that are getting burnt out in that position of the chart as well. And specifically, it will influence the houses that Saturn has rulership over. So again, you want to see where is Capricorn at and where is Aquarius in the chart. You also want to see what is the Chara Karaka that Saturn represents in your chart. So this is from a Gemini astrology perspective. You want to see what is the movable Karaka of Saturn in the chart. Along with this, you want to see, is Saturn in a Papkartari yoga? If so, this will create a bit of an obstacle with getting those qualities of Saturn out. It's also important to understand the aspects of Saturn. So Saturn always will give a 3rd, 7th, and 10th aspect. And so this will definitely show that the 3rd aspect of Saturn will give the most difficulties and obstacles in life. This is where the most effort has to be applied at. Also, the 7th aspect of any planet shows the reflection of that planet upon the opposite house. So Saturn will desire the things that are related to the house that it is looking directly at. The 10th aspect also shows the actions that you must perform for Saturn in your chart. So that will show the final result of Saturn's position. Another concept is to understand the position of Saturn from its original home. So you want to really look at this from the sign of Aquarius, but you could also see it from Capricorn as well. Another important factor is, how do you interpret Saturn in your natal chart? Well, many of you are probably familiar with the position of Saturn wherever it is in your birth chart. In that D1 Rashi chart, that's very important to see. But also you want to see, where is Saturn placed in your D9 Navamsa, because that will also show how the fruits of Saturn will mature in your life also. You also want to see, where is Saturn placed in the D10, because Saturn represents work. So it becomes a natural karaka for the D10 Dasamsha, where we can see career. You also want to check Saturn in the D60 chart. That is the final chart that will give the final say of the strength of Saturn. So really, to judge the strength of Saturn, it's important to see it in the D1, D9, and D60 chart. You also can see Saturn from your moon sign as well. So some quick remedies for Saturn will be service. Always Saturn is about wanting to help, wanting to make a difference in life. So if you're finding difficult results of Saturn in your chart, this is an easy remedy that you can do, is to involve yourself in some form of charity or some way that you can help others, especially helping older people, sick people becomes very important. Underprivileged people, this is represented by Saturn. Also, along with that, you can take something very important in your life that you enjoy and you can make a sacrifice of this. So, fasting, taking time out to remove something from your life that you enjoy for a certain set of time will also help as a Saturn remedial measure as well. And the most important remedy for Saturn is always going to be humility, to be humble, to put down your ego and to really have the humility, the patience, the discipline, the ethics. Saturn will reward you for this as well. Some other remedies would be to make sure that your bathroom is cleaned. Saturn also rules over the bathroom. So that will be a great remedy to help to unblock some areas of your life that are afflicted by Saturn. Also, a great remedy is to feed crows because Saturn is associated with cemeteries and is depicted as riding on a crow or vulture. So, this will also help as a remedial measure. So, let's talk about Saturn and Libra then. And in order to do this, we really have to understand, what does Saturn represent and what does Libra represent? So Saturn is a planet of restrictions, boundaries, limitations. It is all about our organizational skills, our ability to be structured, disciplined, patient. Saturn is about our work ethic, about our willingness to persevere and to put in the time and energy. Saturn also represents fear, anxiety, stress. Saturn shows where our biggest obstacles and blocks are, especially early on in life. Saturn is also about service. It's about helping the underprivileged. It's about bringing justice and fairness to society. Saturn also represents servants, represents the underprivileged, anyone who does a service or work for us, anyone who is sick, elderly, anyone who is dealing with difficulties within their life is seen through Saturn. Saturn is said to be the one who limps, so it represents things that are slow moving. Saturn takes its time to give results in our natal chart. Saturn also is representing death. It is representing the ending of something. So Saturn naturally is about spirituality, especially as we start to mature at an older age. Saturn helps us along our spiritual journey. Now, Saturn does really well in the sign of Libra because Libra is all about doing business. And Saturn, as I've mentioned, is all about bringing justice and fairness to society. So Saturn naturally is dealing with the public, dealing with the people, and so is Libra. Libra is a sign of partnership, of business dealings, of contracts, negotiations. So what happens then when Saturn enters into the sign of Libra? Well, Saturn feels very comfortable in Libra because this is the exaltation sign for Saturn. So really, this is a very powerful position of Saturn. Here in the sign of Libra, Saturn gives the skills of business. This is an excellent position for doing business, making deals, doing negotiations. This definitely gives a desire to want to bring about fairness amongst the people. So this is all about how can you do business in order to create fairness and balance within society. Remember that Saturn is the servant, wants to help the downtrodden people, wants to help those in need. So in Libra, it becomes very fair and balanced about how to use business skills, negotiation skills, persuasion skills in order to make a difference within society. This can also be a very creative position as well, especially in the fields of design, of creating clothing and designs that can impact and help those in need. So really, this is an excellent position for really doing things in an organized and detailed way, doing things in an organized and disciplined way in order to create that sense of fairness and balance. With this position, there is oftentimes not so much of a desire to gain wealth through products, but to impact people through products is seen with this position. This makes one very serious and organized about contracts, about deals, negotiations, about partnership and marriage. This is a very charitable and philanthropic position. Again, all about helping people. This position could also show wanting to help people through the field of law as well. We know that Libra is about creating a sense of fairness and balance, and Saturn is the judge. So this is an excellent position for a judge, for a lawyer, for anyone who is using the law in order to create that sense of balance. Now let's go ahead and talk about the different nakshatras that Saturn will fall in the sign of Libra, starting off with the Chitra nakshatra. Chitra, as we spoke about in the previous video, is all about design. It is all about creating something that is beautiful. And so especially here, this gives great creative skills and technical skills in order to create a product, to create a system, to create something that will impact other people. This could also show these qualities very strongly in a servant and someone who does work for you as well. So let's talk about what happens when Saturn enters into the nakshatra of Swati. Now, Swati means the self-going one, the independent star. So definitely Swati is a very independent position, very self-reliant, wants to go their own way. Swati also is represented by a young plant that is swaying in the wind, which represents freedom, move, and change. So this ability to switch directions, to sway in a different direction can be seen. Swati also, though, is a part of the butcher caste, and it is strongly connected with Vayu, the god of prana, which is the life force. So this is a very powerful nakshatra that has a lot of strength, a lot of courage in it. It is definitely connected with Hanuman, which is known for strength and power. So we can see these qualities very strongly in the Swati nakshatra. Swati also, as it is about this swaying in the wind and this connection to the wind, it is about things that travel through the airways, like communication, like doing business, doing entrepreneurship, spreading things out. So there is definitely an expansive quality to Swati. There's an ability to amplify things and an ability to communicate things in a way that gets the message across to other people, that persuades others, that gets people excited and energized. So this definitely can give a great ability to do business when Saturn is in Swati. This can get so many people influenced by that product, by that business dealing, by that service that is being provided to society. And so this becomes a very helpful position. It is all about spreading this out into the world to try to make a difference. Saturn in Swati naturally gives great negotiation skills, great business skills. These are people who are really careful about how they do everything and say everything that they put out into the world. Saturn gives that carefulness, that caution, that ability to do things step by step. But definitely it gives this ability to influence the masses, to get that message out. This is an excellent position for social work as well, doing social welfare, trying to make a change within the world, doing political reform and changes within society. Now let's talk about Saturn and Vishakha. Vishakha is a very interesting position. Vishakha is one of the Jupiter-ruled nakshatras in the Vimshottari system. And the Jupiter nakshatras are by far some of the most eccentric. And so this is definitely going to be a very interesting position. Vishakha is the only nakshatra that is ruled over by two deities at the same time. So this shows a split nature, a duality that is seen in this nakshatra. And the symbol here is of a forked branch. So going out into these different directions, like the branches of the balance scale. So this is definitely showing this duality, this split. And Vishakha is also strongly connected to fire rituals, to spirituality as it is ruled over by Agni. But at the same time, it is ruled over by Indra, which is all about being the king, being in a position of power and authority. So this can also be seen as well. Vishakha is definitely a very creative position as it's represented by a potter's wheel. It shows this ability to create, to put together works of art. Vishakha can take a traditional path as it is Jupiter ruled, but at the same time, it is again very eccentric, very different. And so, what happens then when Saturn comes into Vishakha? And this is a very interesting position because Saturn gets exalted at 20 degrees. So, right on that border of Swati and Vishakha is where the exaltation point of Saturn occurs. This is the strongest point of exaltation. And so, this definitely shows a great ability to succeed in life. But because Saturn is also debilitated in the D9 Navamsha when it enters its exaltation in Vishakha, there's also going to be some struggle that comes along with this. Because Vishakha is about splitting things, there is somewhat of a chaos or change that has to occur in order to reach that level of success in life. This position can definitely take a person into a leadership position, but out of the difficulties, out of the struggles, is how they rise into this position. Saturn here will teach a great deal of wisdom as well. Again, this is a Jupiter ruled nakshatra. And so Jupiter is here to teach you the higher knowledge, the higher wisdom through this position. And so you may find that you face many struggles and difficulties early on that eventually help you to mature and to gain more wisdom and insight in life. This position in some ways is definitely about being humble, about being ethical. We talked about how Saturn is related to this, and Vishakha, being ruled over by Indra, can sometimes be a position of high levels of ego. So this is also a way that you may be tested with Saturn and Vishakha. And of course, again, we can see that anyone who works for you, anyone who is acting as a servant in your life, can also have very eccentric qualities as well.